Well, we welcome you to Appalachia, the podcast that puts the culture back in agriculture. My name's Ronnie Cowan. I'm your host on today's journey. We have some special guests joining us in the cerebral rocking chairs. We'll highlight what's going on this weekend with Free Hunting Day, also the Velvet Antler Hunt, and we'll talk about dove season, which is fastly approaching, and we are cutting it straight from the horse's mouth. Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency will be joining us. So come on in, listen to our guests, and we'll even talk about a scary new pest that has made its way to the south. Find out what it is and much more later on the show. Let's dive right in. All right, we are joined by some very special guests today. We have some members of the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, some of their biologists and public relations specialists with us today, and we'll let them introduce themselves. We have
Got Matt Cameron. I am the Communications and Outreach Coordinator for Region 4.
Sterling Daniels, the Region 4 Species Program Biologist.
John Mike, I'm the Region 4 Wildlife Program Manager.
All right, guys. Nice to have you here today. We always enjoy working with other state agencies. With UT Extension, we bridge the information from UT to the citizens of the state. And one of those big partners that we like working with is the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. So they do a lot of things in managing our state's precious natural resources, and really a lot of culture and heritage goes into it. Pastime, hunting, fishing, watchable wildlife. I like to remind folks, even if you don't hunt and fish, you should still support TWRA. Because with your license sales and things, it goes to wildlife management conservation. So even if you like viewing wildlife and doing things recreation-wise, it's still a great agency to have, and they support the residents of Tennessee. And so I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about what they do. So if you could, gentlemen, would you tell me a little bit about what you do for the agency and what you'd like the people of East Tennessee to know about?
I started back in '03. Sterling and I went to college together at UTK, Go Vols, and the premier wildlife school in the state's what I say.
I like to hear that, yeah.
I was an officer for about 10 years, and then I got into a public relations job about 10 years ago, and I represent the agency as a spokesperson with the news media and do programs and events primarily.
Yeah, like Matt said, graduated in 2004. I started out as an officer for a few years, went to biodiversity for several years, and then now work in the game management side of things. Started that in 2012, so a little over 10 years ago. So basically, myself in the region, I do everything species related to game except for elk. Your deer, bear, turkey, waterfowl, small game, upland game birds. So basically anything that you got questions on or need help with related to those species, give me a shout.
We got enough time? I've been working for TWRA since 1988. I'm 35 and a half years in. I was born and raised up in the Cumberland Gap area. I tell folks I'm a true tri-stater. I've got relatives from Kentucky, Ewan, Virginia, and then Campbell and Claiborne County. So anyhow, I started in Giles County in 1988. And then worked my way up. I was Scott County officer, assistant manager. At that time, it was called Royal Blue WMA, which is now North Cumberland. And then I was the deer coordinator, waterfowl coordinator, and then also supervised Kiker Bottoms, Foothills, Tellico Lake, and then Tellico, the TWRA crew that worked with the U.S. Forest Service for the Tellico district. Then I was the area manager, Chuck Swan, WMA for 9 years, then promoted into the WMA coordinator for Region 4. And for some folks may not realize, Region 4 is the 21 most eastern counties of the state. And then promoted to where I'm at right now as the Regional Wildlife Program Manager. So it's been a good ride. I'm hoping to, good Lord willing, hang on another 5 years and then go to the house.
Great. Well, a wealth of experience with us today, and he'd mentioned something about WMAs, wildlife management areas, and they're really a wonderful thing. They're public lands, correct? That there's seasons on it. There's special hunts that you can go if you don't have private land to hunt. That's really a great resource that we have in Tennessee. We have ample public land, especially with wildlife management areas, and I think Region 4 has several wildlife management areas, don't they?
We have approximately 15.
15.
We have the biggest state-owned WMA in the state here in Region 4, and that's North Cumberland. It's basically 200,000 acres, and it expands from Golden Gap National Park all the way down to Frozen Head State Park in Morgan County. So, I mean, it's the WMAs, ours with TWRA, have been significant. 40, 50 years ago, that was the only areas that really had any densities of deer or turkey, and a lot of those hunts were special drone hunts, and that allowed opportunity. And then as time progressed and game populations grew across the state, the use of the WMA sort of went down. But now they're very important because of the influx of people moving into the state of Tennessee, folks losing access to private property for hunting. So people are starting to really focus on doing their not only hunting and fishing, but their outdoor recreation on the WMA. So that gives us another, I guess you could say, layer of management that we have to do. So not only wildlife habitat and wildlife species on our WMAs, it's also managing some of these outdoor activities.
That's great. I know I harvested my first deer on a it's not, I don't know if it's WMA, but it was through a TWRA drawed hunt. I was 10 years old and harvested my first deer on Henderson Island.
Henderson Island, we still have Henderson Island.
Okay, very good. Remember having to take a boat, and I hate to say it, but my first deer might have weighed 40 pounds. I was very proud of it. I remember loaded up in the boat and driving back to the check-in station, tickled to death. But those wildlife management areas are really cool. They can find out about that online at tn.gov if they put in wildlife or TWRA. So.
And also any of our hunting guides. And the one thing that's really neat, Matt can talk about this, is we're starting to add QR codes on our hunting guide. So, used to in Region 4, we'd have a little map on the hunting guide and dots where the WMAs are located. Now it's QR code. We're starting to use that on our WMA information side.
Yeah.
Also, especially at North Cumberland, we have so many people that use that area that on all of our signs now, we have QR codes where people can upload that and they can see all the regulations regarding what they're going to do.
Very good. I forget because I'm such an avid hunter and fisherman, but WMAs, they have other opportunities there. They have trails for our seasons, or some of them even have horseback riding. I don't know about in Region 4, but I've seen some out in West Tennessee that allow some horseback riding.
Yeah, we don't have as much horseback riding, especially North Cumberland. It does have an OHV program. And that's where we're struggling on managing it. That before we were trying to figure out the best ways to manage that program, and basically due to COVID, it has exploded the last few years. So I mean, it's in the thousands of people going up there to ride.
Yeah, so very good. And there's 21 counties in Region 4, you said?
Yes, sir.
And 15 WMA. So that's pretty significant in my opinion. It's got a lot of opportunity. And we'll touch on this later, but dove season's coming up, and I know that TWRA leases some fields that allow folks to dove hunt. And as most of y'all know, I spent the last 3 to 4 years in Florida. They did not have such a thing. If you didn't have private land, it was really hard to find a place to dove hunt. So our partnering with those private land farmers and things for those opportunities is really key. But I'm also a graduate from the University of Tennessee Knoxville Wildlife Program. I graduated there several years ago, and when I was there in the wildlife program, I wanted to be a wildlife officer. That was how I got into wildlife, and the more I studied, the more that I liked the education outreach a little bit more. So I pursued those degrees. But Matt, how long were you a wildlife officer? You said
About 10 years.
about 10 years. In what county did you serve?
I started out here in Knox County as a boating enforcement
Oh, wow.
officer, and I'll tell you the Neyland Stadium debacle story one day when we got time.
Yeah. Oh
I
man.
almost lost my job about as quick as I got it there.
I remember that.
I bleed orange, I'll just say that.
I hear you. I do too. But yeah, I bet that was a very challenging, on game days, cruising the water. I guess you're on the Vol Navy patrol, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my first responsibilities as an officer was to patrol the Vol Navy, and that was back when we were really competitive, in the SEC, playing for the championship just about every year, every other year. And the Florida games and some of those, September, October games when the weather was nice on a Saturday, you'd get thousands of boats that come up and raft up, and went through a lull there, but it looks like we're picking steam back up now again with the football program. So we appreciate and we welcome the boaters to come down there and enjoy
Great.
festivities.
Yeah, so my wife is new to East Tennessee. She grew up in West Tennessee. I told her if she lives here 8 more years, she'll be considered a native Tennessean. but she's excited about actually seeing Vol Navy and things. We have a boat, but I wouldn't dare fight that. I'm not trying to fight all that, but I do like boating. But it can be a different atmosphere down there on the water, and I'm sure it was hard keeping us safe and make sure that they were coming in there. They're good. But there's an officer in every county, I take it? At least one?
Yes, one or two per county, correct.
Great. So, so what can they help folks with? So if they have issues, if they see something that's possibly, you don't want to accuse people of doing wrong, but if they have issues, they can contact them. I guess there's still a hotline they call, and they get the wildlife officers out to their properties or to help their issues, I guess.
Correct. We have a dispatcher in the Region 4 office in Moorestown that answers the phone from, I guess it's about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning till up till midnight. And then after midnight, folks can call 911 or whatever they have, emergencies they need to get in touch with us that the counties can get a hold of us. But
Wow.
yeah, we have dispatchers that will get in touch with the officers, send them out, answer calls, and just contact them. We do have a poaching hotline that's specifically for violations. If they want to call 1-800-831-1174, they can report hunting, fishing, boating violations directly to the dispatcher.
And we get questions here at the extension office. Sometimes they'll call us and want to know clarification on a rule, or learn about what they can do legally, or just have questions in general about wildlife management. That first number that you spoke of, they can call the region office and they can help those folks out. So it don't have to be just a law enforcement issue. They can call.
Yes, sir. Hey, we got secretaries up there that I promise you know as much or more than our field officers and biologists and managers do about some things, because they answer calls all day long. They're constantly referring to the hunting and fishing guides, and they can answer your questions. So if you call up there and you get a lady on the phone, don't discount her because she's a woman. She probably knows, like I said, as much as anybody in the agency about the regulations.
That's great, because there is a lot to it. I mean, we have such diversity here in Tennessee. Tennessee is one of the most diverse landlocked states in America, so we've got a lot going on, a lot of different things. I know that when I was in West Tennessee, I'd get some calls about anything from bears to black panthers. We had a black panther sighting about every year or so where I was at. A local high school was called the Black Panthers. So get a lot of calls and questions and comments. But that'll be for our Halloween episode. We're gonna cover cryptids and the Bigfoot and Black Panthers and stuff like that. So.
Well,
very good.
like Matt said, the admins up front, the folks we have there are front lines. So I'd recommend, no matter what the call is, that's probably, unless it's a poaching violation in progress, call the poaching hotline. But the 423-587-7037 gets you to our administration folks up front, and if they can't answer it, they can direct you to who can. But they are a tremendous help in the region for sure.
Right. Well, Sterling, you handed me a bear publication a while ago, and I'd made the comment about growing up here in southern Appalachia, growing up in Sevier County on the Blount County line, and moving back. I've been here, grew up here, but moved back, and we all get excited when we see bears down here. We see bears coming there's a couple of days ago where they saw one in the Food City parking lot in Seymour, and that's a rare bird in our neck of the woods. So, what can you tell us about being bear wise, living with bears, and maybe why we see some of these bears coming down?
Well, most of the bear movement, obviously, I mean, you have the breeding season in the summer that kind of really food is the biggest key as far as what goes on with the bear movement in general, especially as when they come out of the den in the spring and the summer, they're looking for food, right? So sometimes they get in trouble, and be mindful that time of year is what I would recommend to residents is when you look at the Bearwise basics, all this information is on bearwise.org. It's very good information, but basically securing your food, your pet food, your bird seed, your trash, your garbage, that's probably your number one issue. When those bears are coming out April, May, know to keep, if you're in areas that you expect to see bears, know to keep those things secure. You mentioned bears in places you don't see them. That's more likely they're probably not thinking about a bear moving through. They've got those things out. But once you see the bear in that area, be neighborhood aware. Let your neighbors know that bear's coming through. They're not likely to stay if they don't find food. They're going to move on to a more mountainous area. More likely they're transitioning through that area. But these Bearwise basics are great information. Like I said, they're on the website. A lot of our folks will refer you to those because that's the first step in any bear situation or incident is usually going to be food related, and handling and securing those foods is key for sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but bears just have a lot wider range in general than some of these more species that we're used to. Like white-tailed deer, compared to a white-tailed deer, they have a much bigger home range, right? I mean,
They move a lot. It's species, within the sexes, females will have a little bit smaller home range than males. And, even individuals, some will move more than others. So there's a lot of good information. The park's working a study right now in the Smokies, with GPS collar bears, and they're seeing some large movements from these individuals. Good information will come out of that research for sure. But yes, they do have large home ranges, and they can move in large areas, especially in search of food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, we all get excited when we see them. They're fun to see, but, they can cause trouble if you're not used to them. So educate yourself. Check out the Bearwise checklist. We'll put it on our Facebook page. We'll have a copy or two in the extension office to pick it up. Mm-hmm. That's one of the joys is you have opportunities living in southern Appalachia to view these animals. But we were talking about home ranges. I've read from UT and some of these other hunt sites that a buck will spend most of his life within a square mile if it's not spooked, or if they have ample habitat forage there. So, and then a couple of years ago we got excited about mountain lions. Mountain lions showed up on a game camera, and if you look at their home range, it's even greater than a bear. Pretty cool how some of these travel and things like that. But we have some opportunities coming up, some exciting things coming up from as far as season standpoint. So, guys, tell me what's going on this weekend.
At the Velvet Hunt, which for those who don't know what that means, it's an opportunity to harvest an antlered deer in the early season here. Normally our archery season doesn't open until late in September, but the commission saw fit a few years ago to open up a hunt where a hunter could take a velvet deer, and it's when the antlers are still in their velvet while they're still actively growing. So let's see, August 25, 26, and 27 will be this upcoming weekend.
That's great.
On private land only.
On private lands, okay. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I've always aimed to participate in that, but I've not gotten out there yet. I'm raising a 3-year-old, and I didn't know what free time was until I had her and how much I wasted it. I would take that before, but your hunting kind of goes to the wayside a little bit. But that velvet hunt's pretty interesting. So that's what makes antlers, right? They shed and they grow that velvet back in form. A lot of fun can be had. It's just so hot at this time of year.
I agree.
when I was in Florida, I didn't like sitting in a tree stand in 80-degree weather, but to have a chance at that, because archery season doesn't start usually till the last weekend of September, right?
It's the 23rd this year, fourth Saturday in September.
Fourth Saturday in September. So you have about a little less than a month ahead, if you have a buck on camera or something like that. But we talk a lot in the extension about food safety. So our our family consumer science agents do food safety and things. So when I talk to hunters, we always talk about food safety starts with shot placement. So dispatching that animal, harvesting that animal quickly, and getting that meat cooled down and harvesting and dressing is super important in August. So if you do that, make sure that you try to keep that in mind. Keep that animal cool, and so you can harvest the meat as well. But I love looking at velvet antlers. I think it's unique how they mount them. They can actually mount those velvet antlers, and I've seen some very cool mounts with it. But that's a great opportunity. Y'all have another event starting. Is it this weekend? The free hunting day?
Several Saturday, which is the opening of squirrel season as well. So yes, if this would be a great opportunity for you to get involved in hunting. If it's something you've been thinking about trying, you can go on Saturday. You can go squirrel hunting. Take 10 squirrels a day, I believe, is the limit on them. You could also go hunt you a velvet white-tailed buck deer this Saturday and not have to pay a nickel to do it. So I would jump on that opportunity. A lot of people in the agency had issues with that. Hey, we're going to let somebody go kill a deer without a license. And
that's true. I did
that
not
is the
think
case.
about that. Yeah, so used to just basically squirrel hunt, or for this velvet, the free day was mostly the opening day of squirrel season. I like that. Or I'll tell you, as a young boy, I could not sleep the night before squirrel season. I absolutely loved it. Going out there with a shotgun and first chance getting in the woods, and you learn a lot small game hunting. You get to probably not as serious as far as you don't have to be as quiet as on some of these. You get to go with the friends and the camaraderie. I remember walking behind my dad carrying a 410 break open shotgun, and he'd make me carry it with the action open. And he wouldn't hand me a shell until he saw a squirrel. Teaching me gun safety, teaching me about wildlife. So good memories under those oak trees for those squirrels. But I hope that younger people are getting involved in that, because I see a lot of young people, and it's across the state. Whether you're in downtown Knoxville or if you're in Hohenwald, Tennessee, a lot of kids are not getting out there as much. I think they have so much demand for their attention elsewhere. Good and bad, but I've caught or I've helped a lot of children catch their first fish, and you'd have never thought that 20 years ago when you're in a real rural community that they haven't done that. So this would be a great experience to get out there and try it this weekend. And there's some good recipes for squirrel. I've ate squirrel. My wife laughs, but you cook a squirrel right, it's just as good as a hot wing. And I think there's some squirrel recipes on your all's app, the TWRA Go app. There's some squirrel recipes on there, so if you want to try that out, that'd be a pretty good thing. Another thing that's coming up that I want to pick your all's brains about is dove season. I'm excited about dove season. It starts September 1, opens at noon on that day. It's kind of a tradition, I think, in Tennessee for it to open at noon. I don't know if other states do that, but it's pretty cool how it's always that September 1 date, and it's at noon.
I'm going to pick John's brain on why does it open at noon?
That is state, federal guideline.
Oh, yeah.
We're regulated by U.S. Fish and Wildlife on opening day, and then also on when it starts. So I mean that's the big thing on that. It's been like that. I've been with state 35 and a half years, and it was like that when I started.
I know that some of those federal regulations, I heard that ducks the same way. Like there's a certain amount of days of season that you can't have.
We're allowed so many days, and we went through part of that on this past season setting process is how to give. When you look at, Reese, I'll get this out here in a minute. I'm getting my thoughts formulated on this one.
Totally.
Because here in Region 4, I have to go to some of the statewide meetings because of my job responsibilities with waterfowl. And usually I sit in the corner and I'm quiet on that because Region 4, I jokingly tell everybody that we are the duck desert. That we have a few spots that's an oasis that we have waterfowl. But Region 4, where we're at, we're right on the line between the Mississippi Flyway and Atlantic Flyway. And part of that is we just don't get the waterfowl that middle West Tennessee get.
I always joke and say if you're a duck hunter and you kill a duck, it's lost.
But we do have one area, Lick Creek, that we do have some waterfowl hunting. It's drone hunt. If anybody's interested in that, they can find out how that is involved by going to the hunting guide. But that what we try to do in these meetings when we do the season setting, and like I said, I'm usually quiet because our guys in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee, that's the area where all of our or majority of our waterfowl hunting is concentrated. So we try to balance that. I think I can't remember how many days, but basically we try to balance where they can have as many days as possible, but have quality days. Sometimes we try to give them a few more weekends, and then also, it's a flip of the coin. Some folks have gotten upset that we've adjusted where we try to give them more weekends, and in that they didn't get as many days in January, and due to weather, all the waterfowl starting to come in those last few days or those few days of January, and it shuts down. So I mean, it's a balancing act with the waterfowl and setting the days. But you are correct. I mean, we're giving so many days.
Yeah.
So, and you bring up a good point, and all three of y'all can chime in, but I take for granted, and some of our listeners may not know how the seasons are set. So how does TWRA work with the commission and all that, and set the hunting seasons? Is that a year thing they do, like a yearly plan they meet, or is it a 10-year plan, or how do they manage that?
I mean, Matt handles a lot of that as far as in the I&E group communication division, as far as getting all that out. Trying to remember, basically we've adjusted some of the dates. I'm gonna say, is it middle?
I think it's going to start in December this year.
December.
Probably December 15th-ish.
Yeah, through middle of January, we have it's open to the public, and Matt will send out news releases here in Region 4. It'll be on the website, or send in your recommendation. Then after that, we collect all the recommendations, and in all that stuff that is sorted into categories: deer, turkey. Some of them you may see the same recommendation in 4 categories, because somebody will say in their paragraph is, they want to change the buck limit, they want to change the turkey limit, they want to increase the squirrel limit. So you may have the same person in 3 different categories. But in that, we review those, and from those recommendations, we try to look at the ones that we number them. Also, if we have a high percentage of folks that send in recommendations to extend the season or alter the season, then those are looked at in a higher priority. Sometimes there's some recommendations, we look at them, but they're just not feasible to do. I mean, I'll be straight out and honest on that, is that some people will want to have I mean, we've had some recommendations, they want to have a spear season.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how do you fit that in? And how we try to look at in hunting where you're respecting the game, and not saying that is not respectable, but how can that work? And some of those, they just don't fit. It's the old saying, is trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, and I think we get in the weeds sometimes. I mean, some of this stuff fits in with another things. We have a muzzle. So, for example, we have a muzzleloader season. Well, do we need a muzzleloader season, a flintlock season?
Yeah.
People get tied up in the weeds, and really we have a lot of availability here in Tennessee, and I think we're very fortunate to have we have, to me, a lot of opportunity in Tennessee. We have long seasons. We have a lot of time to get out there and do the things we enjoy.
We have some of the longest deer seasons in the Southeast.
Absolutely. And and that's because we have the herd to support that, or not the herd, but the population. And we have biologists from TWRA. We have biologists at UT, which is our land grant institution that has extension specialists in wildlife that does research, that probably work with y'all, or give y'all recommendations. I'm pretty sure that we talk to each other about our research and stuff. So, as a fellow wildlife professional, sometimes I feel like that we don't always get listened to because sometimes everybody who carries a gun in the field or hunts is a expert. And you know, they do, and they're out there on the ground, they see a lot and they have valuable opinions, but you know, I think that the state does a good job trying to manage our resources with the science that we have.
Yeah.
So I agree that we do that. But yeah, we get a lot of this. I get questions about, you know, the fire sticks is a big deal in muzzleloaders right now, using fire sticks versus, you know, loose powder pellets. And then you get, you know, the spears. I guess they watch a lot of that on TV, some. And I mean, there's a lot out there hunting hogs from helicopters.
Oh, yeah.
it's just killing a lot of it.
I mean, in my history of TWRA, we even had some that wanted a special blowgun season.
Wow.
So I mean,
Now I saw that iguanas in Florida.
Florida.
Iguanas in Florida. As well.
I mean, well, that's that. I mean, I entertain and look at those, and I've had a lot of folks. I mean, these folks are passionate about what they would like to have, but then also we're responsible for balancing all of this. And in that, I think, in my mind, and I may be wrong, but in my mind, I think we're trying to make the best balances possible
Yeah.
to allow opportunity. So I mean, it's.
Well, I find that hunters and people who fish are some of the most passionate about the wildlife resources and game, because it's just it's their pastime. They grew up, you know, the connections they made growing up, learning to hunt and fish with loved ones that may no longer be here. It's very important to them, and they're passionate. And there's a lot to be said about that. And I'm glad that you allow public input. So there's public input on your all's decisions and using the science and the commission. So I guess another way, if they have input or thoughts, is there's commissioners that represent geographical areas of Tennessee, right, that serve on this commission that I guess, or I wouldn't say overseas, or it may be a correct term to overseas, but it's led by a commission, right? Blount County, or I think the guy in Blount County is over Blount, Sevier, maybe another county, or I think the commissioners have several counties they represent, right? And they're appointed by the governors. That's still how okay, very good. But yeah, and that varies by state and state, right? So there's some states that has a Department of Natural Resources. There's some that's run by commission. I know in Florida we had a Florida Wildlife Commission that's kind of similar to what we do. But I think that, you know, working together with land grants and doing what we need to do to fix the resource. But the next topic, you know, the dove season coming up. The big question that we're getting now is, you know, what can we do for dove? And we obviously want to be legal, so, you know, maybe you can tell us about what dove hunters need to know.
Well, if you're talking about as far as preparing their own field or just hunting in general?
Or just preparing their own field and hunting, you know. So first, let's talk about what they can do to prepare their field.
I'm going to defer that one to Sterling or John.
Yeah, I mean, and where we're at now, it's crunch time if they're going to try to prepare a field. But like thinking ahead to next year, I mean, if most dove hunters hunt other species, big game, and so on, I think probably the easiest field, in my opinion, is you know, from a food plot perspective, folks like to plant wheat, clover, different things. Think about August of next year, plan ahead a little bit. If you're already going to do a food plot for conservation, go ahead and get your field worked up, and then have that ground prepared. And probably a week to 10 days before, if it's going to rain, you don't want to plant that. But basically, if you've got a period of dry weather, the obviously season opens on the 1st, you want to get that seed out. You can topsoil that legally, and you have a hunting opportunity there on the 1st, and then you get that byproduct of having that food plot when you get that rain later on. So that's probably the easiest method. I mean, if you really want to dive into it and start planting some warm season crops, you can look earlier in the year, like May and June. You got sunflower, millet, corn crops that you could plant, and those crops can be manipulated as you roll into this time of year in August. And a lot of people will either bush hog roll those fields, and that puts that seed on the ground. You can do it in strips to kind of continuously provide that seed and draw those doves in. And after those fields are harvested, you can come back and topsoil them. And when we talk about topsoiling or any of these planting methods, you need to follow the ag extension recommendations of normal agricultural practices, and usually that's 2 bushels per acre for wheat, top zone, and if it's uncertified, we recommend 3 bushels. But that's my 2 cents on preparing a field. John, you got?
Yeah, I mean, as far as dove hunting itself, as long as it's a normal agricultural procedure and UT Extension, we were talking earlier, that has this information, and then also, and we were talking about waterfowl, both of those are regulated by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and what may be legal for a dove field, you can't waterfowl hunt over. That's one thing we try to make people aware of. As far as just normal going out and going to a dove field, I mean, on mine, I hit the mandatory date on retaining a commission, so I'm not commissioned anymore. But in that, I work dove fields a lot, and one thing that I always tell folks is make sure your shotgun's plugged. A lot of folks that squirrel hunt will take the plug out and forget to put it in. If there are some of them that will go on quail hunts, rabbit hunting, they'll take the plug out, they forget. Then also have the appropriate license. Remember, you have to have that free, to hunt doves, that free migratory
Bird permit.
I mean, it's
In addition to your small game,
in addition to your regular
unofficial license.
So, I mean, when I was at Chuck Swan, we'd have a special dove field, and there's always a group of the locals, Sharp Chapel, that I knew, and I rabbit hunted with them. And you know, before they'd hit the field, we'd all sit there and eat, have a cookout, and other folks coming in, and we'd have anywhere from 400 to 500 people there. But that one group I knew, and like I said, we'd eat lunch before the dove hunt would start, and they'd go out before I'd let them leave. I said, all right, let's check your shotguns. And sometimes someone would forget. As long as you have your shotgun plugged before you get on the field, you're fine. But you know, once you get on there,
Yeah, I love it. And I've used some stuff in a pinch, you know, a stick or something. It's through shells, right?
yeah, I mean, two in the magazine,
Yeah.
one in the chamber. I mean, I had one guy, I don't mean to tell war story, but it wasn't funny. He got there when I didn't know him, and he saw me checking everything, and he realized he didn't have his plug. So he went back to his truck, and the only thing he had was a pencil.
Yeah.
Well, it was a sharpened pencil. So when I went to check him, I put 2 in the magazine, then tried to put the third, and the third just didn't feel right. And I just pushed it a little bit, and it went in. His eyes got real big. I said, let's try it again. So it went in, all 3. I said, what do you have for a plug? I said, don't feel right. He said, a pencil. I said, let's take it apart.
Yeah.
So he took it apart, and every time I push a shell in there, it's breaking off the lid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
On that, I was under, in those and something like that, we have the ability to write a warning. So I wrote him a warning. I said, let's go over here and catch you a plug.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
So, I mean, stuff like that happens. It's 99% of those are unintentional. I have had some that were intentional, but anyhow.
Yeah. That's 15 birds a person, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 15 birds a person. So.
It is.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can do this here. But have you seen these dove hunts in Argentina? Oh my gosh!
We've had some folks that have
Oh my gosh!
paid to go down there, and it's awesome.
I mean, these guys have just pallets of shells, and they're just stacking these birds up. I mean, they're like flies. It's just unreal. It's just unreal. That's Argentina, not Tennessee.
Oh yeah, that's
Argentina.
some of it are different varieties of doves. But it's unbelievable the number of birds down there.
Yeah, we have a lot of doves around here, and we even have some of those Eurasian collared doves flying around, and I think you can shoot those with or that's in your normal bag limit. I think if you see those collared doves, but
It is no limit unless you can't identify them, then they count as your normal dove bag limit.
Kill pigeons too.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And people, I've been in dove fields where guys wouldn't shoot pigeons. I'm like, it's about 3 times the size of a dove, and it tastes just like
Tastes
it
just
to
like it.
me. And they're easier to hit because they're bigger.
They're
and
over
slower.
a dove field, maybe. I don't know if they've been around an old parking lot or maybe, I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah. And a lot of guys bring their dogs out for training, so it's a good opportunity for that.
Absolutely. I had a Weimaraner. He's retired. He hunts Hot Pockets now, but he was a dove dog at one time. When I had private lands, but you know, it's fun going to these public fields. It's just, if it opens at noon, you have to get there at 5:30. And it's like the Walmart parking lot sometimes. And practice your etiquette. There's a lot to be said about ethics. Low birds and everything. And I've had some scary times on a public dove field, but practice safety and be aware of your neighbor, because you don't know what your neighbor's going to do across the field.
Yeah, be mindful where you're at on the field. I mean, our public fields, shooting across roads. I mean, it's common to pepper people's houses, things like that, and we get a lot of calls. So some of our fields, whether it be WMA or a public lease field, it goes a long way to be respectful of those folks for us to get those fields in the future.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and your actions goes a long way, and you don't want to give us a hard time. You wouldn't know it in East Tennessee or Tennessee in general, but we are a minority. Sportsmen are a minority in the United States. So I think the Boone and Crockett Club one time claimed that it's less than 10% of the population of the United States.
Let me speak on that a second. They taught us this in college. The number's still about the same, but about 10% of the population hunts and fishes. About 10% is against it, and the other 80% in the middle don't care either way. And what we don't want to do is sway those 80% in the middle and push them towards the end of things. We want to keep them sympathetic to our cause, so that we can continue enjoying hunting and fishing in this great country.
And I do a lot of social media because I try to get the information out to you folks. But we see a lot of stuff on social media. We live in a day of cameras and everything. A lot of public opinion. And I saw a post recently about hunting dogs. Season hasn't even started yet, and there was a lot of owners threatening to shoot dogs, and just guys and girls that participate in this, be careful out there, follow the rules, and think about building up this pastime, because like Matt said, we don't want to sway the population negatively. We want to have a positive opinion, and we have a great impact on the landscape. I mean, we manage these lands, and even if you don't hunt or fish, we still do a lot for you as far as managing the resources, providing you opportunities. I know when I lived here, it was called Royal Blue, and there was a elk viewing platform. I think it's called Sunquist.
It's on Sunquist unit. North Cumberland is basically has the New River unit, what we call the new. It's somewhat new. We changed the boundaries, but it's a Royal Blue unit. We have Sunquist unit. We have the High Cliff unit, and the Ed Carter unit, and then now we just recently acquired some property it's called the Odie Mills Refuge unit of North Cumberland. That's the newest. It's right now it's about 800 acres. We're hoping to increase that acreage in the near future.
Right. And the rut's coming on for elk right into September, early October. So if you haven't heard those bugle, and get out there and go to Sunquist and look at that.
We have a new tower.
Oh, really?
Very nice new tower that TWRA worked with the former county mayor, the Chamber of Commerce, TWRA, which is the Campbell Outdoor Recreation Association. Terry Lewis is the president of that. We worked with them, and we got a very nice. The old tower was wood. This is metal and concrete.
Wow, I've been at the other tower, but my elk stories, I used to collect hemlock woolly adelgid samples off of Royal Blue, and I was working. I got to smelling something, and I wasn't familiar with elk. This is not long after they started that project, and I looked around and seen these big wallers where they get out and they wallow and get all that scent around, and I was sitting on the ground cutting hemlock branches and look, and here they come, just big old, like if you're not used to seeing elk in the woods, oh my gosh, it's something to see. But they might be a little old hat now, but they've been around here for several years. But I still find it very interesting. And we were in an in-service. Some of the agents went to in-service last week about forestry, and we have more forest today than we did in the 1800s. Believe it or not, a lot of people think negatively about some of the forestry issues that we have, but we have a lot more forest now than we did. If you want proof, look at the old Civil War photos. Be ragged farmlands. They farmed areas that they just had to survive. It really wasn't suitable farmland, but just think back on the landscape when you went over to Crossville. Most of that was burned, and it's probably a prairie-like system, So
And we had bison here.
Yeah,
they're
bison,
native to Tennessee. If that tells you anything.
Yeah, so elk used to roam and bison, so it's cool to have those back, and just got to learn to live with them, right? like anything else. Now, we have these gentlemen from TWRA, but they do a lot more. There's also fishery staff, right, that works in our fisheries, our lakes. And the beautiful thing about living in East Tennessee is we have plenty of lakes. We got lakes from here. You have, Douglas, Fort Loudon, Tellico, Watts Bar, just an hour or so of drive to go fishing. We have a lot of anglers, a lot of fishing opportunities. So we have folks that are on the fishery staff. I've noticed that they have fishing reports online. Some of the krill kirks do fishing reports if you want to know what's biting and doing things. We got folks that focus on non-game, right? Okay, cool. Non-game, biodiversity. So they do a little bit of everything. Well, guys, we'll wrap it up. I appreciate y'all coming by and really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here. Ronnie, I'll mention, you already stopped? Okay, I was going to mention that we talked about dove fields, and we're still trying to get some of those signed. So next week, check our website. We've got our WMA fields on there, and we'll have our public lease fields available probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. So give some good information where you can go dove hunting.
Yeah, get out there and scout a little bit, I guess. Or is that allowable, I guess, once you have it nailed down, you can go look at it?
We'll have those fields for the public lease fields on the 1st, 2nd, and 4th this year. You're welcome to drive by and check and see the birds on the line. We ask you not to get out in the fields until the days we actually have the hunts going on. But you're welcome to get a location on where they're at and kind of scout from the road kind of thing.
And some of them are a little woolly to find, but there's usually pretty good directions that y'all have with
There'll
them.
be directions on the website, and the reason we don't have them up there now is it's all weather dependent. So we got a lot of rain early August, so farmers are just harvesting this week. So we'll have to put pen to paper on those agreements in the next few days, and we'll have everything hopefully done by Monday.
Right.
That's our deadline.
And if we just go to tn.gov and look that up, or
Yes, you can get on our website, tnwildlife.org, and then it'll be available. Probably the quickest way is just to Google TWRA Region 4 dove field and take you straight to her.
right.
Yes.
Very good. So this is a personal question since you brought up things that y'all do. The trout, I'm a big trout fisherman, and y'all still stock trout in some of these streams up here in Region 4. Very good. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming by, and up next we'll be talking about a new invasive pests. All right, guys. Welcome back. I want to thank TWRA for coming out and talking to us, giving us some knowledge. That is how we manage wildlife in the state of Tennessee with that wildlife agency. If you need any of those publications that he had mentioned, with bear, living with bear, or the hunting guides, we can help you get in touch with that. Contact us at our Blount County Extension Office or your county Extension Office, and we'll get you hooked up with some of those publications and how to contact your representatives from TWRA. So very, very good. A quick story about Sterling, the man sitting in the middle there. I was in college and doing in-service work for TWRA. I was a student at the University of Tennessee. When you work in wildlife, you have to have more than just a degree. You have to have a lot of experience, get on the ground running, and he was able to let me band ducks and capture wood ducks and do a little heart trapping for bats, learning a little bit about bats. So getting really diverse in my education so I could be better prepared for a career in wildlife. So having him come back and talk to us is a very special moment. So as I alluded there at the end, we do have something that we need to talk about. And of course, when we talk about these scary things, we have to be cautious. So, coming up, your invasive species. Yeah, scary stuff. So, we have a new pest. Our bee specialist from the University of Tennessee sent this out to all the agents in the state of Tennessee. There has been a discovery of the yellow-legged hornet confirmed in Georgia for the first time. That is the yellow-legged hornet in Georgia. So if you look here, it came by way of the port of Savannah. All these ports in the United States are very important, but it seems like a lot of pests, a lot of invasive species. That's how they play a big role in getting here. So I've heard people refer to this as a bee killer. So this is the yellow-legged hornet. And if you see this, we hope that you would contact us and let us know if you have a species that we have here in Tennessee. We hope we don't see it. We hope you don't see it, but if you do, help us identify it. So it looks pretty common. It's bigger than a European hornet. And here in a second, I will show you some identifying characteristics. You have this white spot, some of the legs and the size. So if we go over here, we have a great comparison. So they're kind of hard to tell apart, but you can tell by size. I see a lot of European hornets come into the office. A lot of people have brought them in. They're concerned that they're the murder hornet. They are not the murder hornet, thank goodness, but they are still a little bit ornery. You got to be careful when dealing with these European hornets. I've had them come in the extension office this year, people wondering what to do about them. But as you can see, they're a little bit smaller than the European hornet. The European hornet to me is easily identified by that reddish color on the head and the midsection there. Remember, insects have 3 parts and 6 legs. And this is certainly the case here. You have the head, the abdomen, and the thorax. And here you have these red coloration markings on the head. And you have, both of them have yellow, but more reddish around the European hornet. Now, if you look over here at the eastern cicada killer, it is a lot bigger than both. We have them come to the extension office. They do look mean. They're a solitary bug for the most part. Not necessarily a bad one to have around, but there are some differences. Size, coloration, focusing on the all black head on the yellow-legged hornet. Hopefully you don't see one. I hope you don't, but if you do see one and you need us to take a look at it, please send it in. We'd be happy to do so. But if we scroll down here, this is a great publication from UGA. If you wish to have this publication, we can get it in your hands. But these are yellow-legged hornet lookalikes. Pigeon horntail sawfly, the bald-faced hornet. Here's the yellow-legged hornet in the middle. And then you have these big cicada killers, the northern giant hornet, paper wasps, which is another common one that we see come in the extension office. So, 4 identifying characteristics of the yellow-legged hornet. You have adults are about 2 centimeters long. Narrow waist, look for a narrow waist, more clenched than the sawfly look-alike. Yellow 4th abdominal segment. Look for a strong yellow stripe on the 4th abdominal section shown on the diagram. And yellow legs, the bottom half. The namesake characteristic of the yellow-legged hornet is the yellow color found on the bottom half of the insect's leg. Again, if you don't want to get that close to them, I don't blame you. But bring it in, we'll have a look-see, and we'll see what they are. So, narrow waist, wide waist, that yellow 4th abdominal section there, and the yellow on the bottom of the legs. So, let's look at this paper wasp, because I think it looks more like a paper wasp than anything else. But those will be the distinguishing characteristics of this bad bug. So hopefully you won't see that come about. All right, we're in the show with going downtown. Southern Appalachia, so we'll take you back going downtown. I want to highlight some things. We have the Tennessee State University. They are other land-grant university. They are partners. They are having a small farm expo. Registration 8:45. Welcome at 9. This is where you can go and learn about integrated pest management, hydroponic, managing small flock poultry, beekeeping, and quality life experience. So it's a good way. You do have to travel to Nashville, not too far out of our footprint. So if you're interested in that, contact your local extension office. Again, that is the Small Farm Expo. Next, I want to talk about Market Ready for Tennessee food buyers. we've advertised this one. We have this one come to Knoxville and Nashville. Nashville is September the 21st. Knoxville is September the 28th. We connect with local food buyers and the unique tour of Tennessee's farm to table scene. So farm to table is the big push right now, eating healthy, supporting our local farmers. If you wish to do that, or if you're doing that now and you'd like to connect with local food buyers, this is a great thing that we're working with University of Kentucky, Farm Bureau, Center for Profitable Agriculture. Great program. Mark your calendars, and registration is now available online at tiny.utk.edu/MRTN REG. So contact the extension office and we'll get you hooked up with that. Should be a great time. I want to show you something that we're doing at our home office. We are doing this Life Down on the Farm. John Wilson, Mary Beth Lima. Our focus on farmers' health. Life Down on the Farm. It's a free event. Everyone's welcome. And we're going to talk about how to support our local farmers. So to increase public awareness about how to support our farmers and hear the stories of the joys and challenges of life on the farm. You can register at our extension office by calling 865-932-6430 extension 5, or we have an online way. We have it sponsored by the Southern Ag Exchange Network. There may be some swag involved, some things that you can take home. Dinner will be served, and that's going to be on October the 12th at our First Baptist Church in Maryville, 6 p.m. So check it out, sign up for it. So our trivia for the month was, what is the driest county in East Tennessee? Not alcohol speaking, but precipitation. What do you think? Driest county in East Tennessee. Well, some of y'all had some very good guesses, and some commentators picked some counties, but no one got it right. It's a 0%er. Maybe I picked a too hard one. It is Loudoun County. Our neighbors, Loudoun County is the driest county in East Tennessee according to annual precipitation. So tune in another week or so. We'll have an episode in August, we'll be done with August. We'll have our first September episode after my dove hunt. Maybe I'll report back on grilling some dove with some bacon wrapped around it. Have to be turkey bacon though, but maybe we'll have some successful hunts between then and some stories to tell. I got a fishing trip lined up on Fort Loudoun. Give you all a fishing report when I get back, but our next podcast will be in a week or so in September, focusing on hobby farming, agriculture, natural resources, current events. So thank you for coming on back, and hope to see you next month in just a short couple of weeks. August is just about over, and it's been a hot one and an unusually wet one. So precipitation question was right in mind. Tune in next time, and thank you for watching and listening to Appalachia Action. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our content on Spotify, Facebook, and thank you for coming.